So, for anyone who is new or needs a reminder or whatever, hi, I'm Chloe. Hopefully you know me. If not, hi. So the Linktober Creator Con is run on a yearly basis. I believe this is definitely my third, but I think it's my fourth year because I did. This is my fourth year. Tuss. It is 4 years now of the Linktober Creator Con. For me, I think it's been going for 5 years. I thought you were Princess Zelda. Stop. Tuss. Like, love that for you. And yeah, so run by Linktober, of course. The Creator Con runs every year now. I think it's been on 5 years now. And it's run on a yearly basis in June. It's for the whole weekend, and it is chock-a-block full of Zelda lovers and creators talking, sharing, playing, making, doing all things Legend of Zelda. And it is an honor, genuinely an honor, to be consistently a part of this. It is so much fun. We've got everything from streamers, writers, musicians, artists, cosplayers, crafters, like everyone jumps in, and it is a wonderful, wonderful time. So I believe the link is to Eventbrite, where you can get the tickets. If you do ! Linktober, I believe that takes you to the page, where with a little donation, you'll get access to the Discord, where you can see all of the markets, where all the different creators are. They've all got their own allocated market. And you can dip in and out. You can go and see anything with as much or as little as you like. And it is super, super fun. So I honestly love this so much. I am a part of the Windfall Market, or Windfall Island Market. Previously, I've been in Tarrytown, I've been in Castletown. My little show has been moving across all the markets across the years. And yeah, so I just wanted to do this spiel at the start because I love this con so much. I will say it is family friendly, so everyone on your best behaviors, please. Typically, this is a 18 plus stream, or an 18 plus stream, but we're all going to be on our best behavior today. Just saying. That is a reminder. So, in the past, in the link to the past, I have, thank you by the way, you can see all of these past streams, or most of them, on YouTube as well. I've never sworn in my life. Sean. I've done a huge paint by numbers for Breath of the Wild. We have done Tears of the Kingdom, where chat controls everything that I do. I have done lore videos on YouTube, and what else have I done? I did something else as well. Something else that I can't remember. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, lore video. Oh, and then this year. I did do chat controls Breath of the Wild, but that was outside of Linktober. I forgot there are 3 years before this. This year, we're going to sit down on one of the hottest days of the year, and we're going to talk all things Zelda lore. Hello! Welcome in, Joel! It's so lovely to have you here! Why is the chat not loading? Please. Where is the chat? It is so lovely to have you here. Yes, please do give the shout out. Honestly, I'm so excited. I don't know why the name isn't coming up in chat, but thank you so much for stopping by. Yes, please do follow the Linktober Twitch page, because they'll do I know, my chat is silly and I love them for it. Joel does a stream like at the start of Linktober, and then I believe you normally do a stream at the end of the con as well, like a little closing ceremony kind of thing, so be sure to follow them on Twitch as well. But you are, yeah, honestly, I don't know why you're a ghost, but maybe it's like my settings, I don't know. Honestly, I love this for them. But yes, we are talking all things. You do? Okay, brilliant. I did remember that right. So yeah, we're going to be talking all things Zelda history today. I've got my notes. This is all I need to talk through the entire history of The Legend of Zelda, which proves how much I know. So yeah, we're going to sit down, we're going to talk all things Zelda history. So of course, there will be spoilers ahead. I will preface this by saying we've got a good mix of people here who, you know, have never played Zelda before, have played it, you know, all the time, and everyone in between. Which proves how autistic you are, because you've kept it all in your brain. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too true. If you want there to be a quiz at the end, there certainly can be a quiz at the end. You break things, especially those pesky parts. You are absolutely true. And honestly, I love this. I can relate to the little notes. Yay! But yeah, we're gonna do lots of history chat. I want to make it as accessible as possible to everyone. So of course, I'll be talking through quite a lot, but equally I'm going to try and make it as easy as possible to understand. I'm not going to go like right into the depths of, you know, like in this cutscene. Well, maybe I will. I don't know. I get excited. But we're going to talk all things Zelda history, and we're going to have a great time. And then if you have any questions at all, just tell me, because this is literally, apart from my wedding, this is literally my favorite topic. Yes, you can find this video without the gloom hands and Guardian music on my YouTube channel. Just do a little shout out on there. And it is sunrise ambience. So we'll be circling around the different parts of Hyrule, but it won't be as fun. That is very true. It's like the school librarian reading to all the kids, except the librarian is autistic and all the kids have intense ADHD. That is, oh, it's not there yet, but that is the description if I ever saw one. So let's go all the way back to the very beginning. So I will be going based on the Zelda timeline from Hyrule Historia, which is a book that came out just after Skyward Sword, I think. It was just after Skyward Sword, I believe. And so I will be basing it on the Zelda timeline. Now, the Zelda timeline is very controversial. It was Nintendo's attempt to connect all of the Zelda games and give them some sort of chronology. Some people agree with it, some people disagree with it. They have now reached a point where lots of the games are actually outside of the timeline, so it gets a bit complicated. But I'm going to go as simple as I can with my little notes. So we're going to go right back to the start, because we do have the creation story of Hyrule from Ocarina of Time. So it's believed to have said that in the very beginning there was nothing in the world at all. Very biblical, but there was nothing in the world. And the three goddesses, the three golden goddesses, came down from the heavens and created the world. So you've got your three goddesses. You've got Din, who is the goddess, the red goddess of power. She, I will refer to the goddesses as she, but of course they are most likely gender neutral, but just, I may refer to them as she, so please forgive me for that. But she, ironically, no phone, please don't give me notifications. There we go. Din was the first to arrive and created the world itself. So it's like with her flaming arm, she created essentially the bare bones of the world. So it was a land just of rugged rock. If you think like Death Mountain, that kind of vibe, it's rugged rocks, there's no life, there's just rocks and ruggedness, okay? And then, I'm making sure I get them in order, then we have Nehru, which is the blue goddess of wisdom. She comes down, and it says in the story that she gives law to the land, so L-A-W, not L-O-R-E. She brings law and order, not the TV show, to the world. So by that, in the creation story, it's like she creates the sky, that sort of thing. So we've got the land, we've got the sky, And then the third goddess, the green goddess of courage, is Furore, or Furore, however you want to pronounce it. I say Furore, you say what you like. And Furore brings life. So Furore creates the greenery, the animals, the humans, the people, all that sort of stuff. And in particular, as a part of that, a part of the life that is created, you have the Hylians, which are essentially the humans of this world. And fun fact, they are known to have long ears because it is said that their hearing is so good that they can actually hear the goddesses. I can't remember what game that's from, but at some point that is said, that's why they've got long ears. So the three goddesses come down, they create the world, so we've got the land, we've got the sky, we've got life. And, right, isn't that really cool? I thought that was a really cute little thing. I think that's probably from A Link to the Past. I'm going to hazard a guess, but I might be wrong in that. Also, I love this angle of Rito Village, just putting that out there. So the three goddesses come down, they create the world, and as they're leaving and return to the heavens, they at the point that they leave the world and then enter the heavens, their power sort of combines. Right, big ears to hear your secrets. So yeah, at the point that they leave, their power combines, and that is the creation of the Triforce. So that is the big, hold on, there's a way you can do it. Hold on, there's a way you can do it. Like that, right? There's a way you can do it. Triforce mention, So that is essentially, it's their power condensed. So each Triforce piece, so the three triangles, each represents each of the goddesses. And the Triforce itself has been made so that any mortal can touch the Triforce, and any wish that they make will become a reality, whether it's good or bad or anything like that. They will touch the Triforce and their wish will be granted. Think genie, that sort of thing. But of course, that's a massive power to leave sort of unprotected, so to speak. So what they do is the goddesses, I don't know whether they create this goddess or anoint this goddess, I don't know, but they give the role of protecting the Triforce to the goddess Hylia, who is my personal favourite, just putting that out there, to the goddess Hylia. So her job is to protect the Triforce from anyone who has ill intentions or anything like that. I need a sip of water. I realise my cup is very on brand. Thank you, Michael, for getting me my blue one. So Hylia is looking after the Triforce. But of course, there is, at some point, bad things are going to happen. Otherwise, we honestly would not be here. So for some amount of time, the Triforce is in the land. And, people pray to it, people worship it. It's just a nice time. But then, as going with the Skyward Sword prologue, the surface of the world cracks open and demons start flooding out from the underworld. They have been sent by Demise, the Demon King, whose sole intention is to claim the Triforce. That's his only goal. He to make it funny, he could have gone to college, he could have got a degree. No, he wanted the Triforce. Ooh, I didn't expect that to move, to change as such as it did. So Hylia sees this, and of course her job is to protect the Triforce. So there are, I know, right? It was so dramatic. I love this area as well, the same. The little bulbs in the back. So there is a manga about this, but we will not be going into the manga because it is not technically canon as much as it hurts my heart. So Hylia, what she does to protect her people. Time to get my shield. So to protect the people, the manga is canon in our hearts. We'll have a whole other conversation about the manga. If you would like me to talk about it at the end, please remind me, because I love the Skyward Sword manga. But yeah, so to protect the people, the Hylians, technically, and to protect the Triforce, she places all of the humans onto an outcropping of rock, as well as the Triforce, and she sends it into the sky, so it's so far away from Demise that he can't even fathom trying to touch it. And once that is complete, she goes back to war against Demise with the rest of the people, the rest of the tribes on the surface. Why they didn't have preferential treatment, I don't know, but whatever happened. So Hylia has the power to she battles with Demise, but her power isn't strong enough. She can seal him away. She can't destroy him entirely, but she can seal him away. So she does. And for that moment, there is a brief moment of peace. The Demon King is gone, the monsters are gone for now, that sort of thing. But the seal won't last forever, and Demise will return. So she's sealed in a way. So Hylia knows that ultimately the Triforce must be protected. It's absolutely fine, Alice. I want to make this I want to make this informative and also exciting. Oh, me getting stuck on the camera there. I'm sure Hope, a little goofy guy with feet, don't threaten his presence. I hope not too. So Hylia sets two plans. Firstly, she creates the spirit in the sword, which is Fee from Skyward Sword. She's there to guide her next hero onto his, through his quest. And her next choice is a little bit more substantial. She knows that only a mortal can make a wish on the Triforce. And the only way to destroy Demise would be to wish on the Triforce for his destruction. But she's a goddess, so she can't do that. So, unless her hero does the wish himself, she chooses to abandon her divine form, and she becomes mortal. So she can find the Triforce many years in the future and make that wish and fulfill her duty, essentially. So she leaves Fee to wait, and she abandons her divine form. And from that, many, many years pass. The surface goes quiet, so to speak. The seal is waning. The people flourish in the sky, and this is where we get to Skyward Sword, which is a game I love with all my heart. I would argue it's definitely top 3. It was my favourite, and then we got to Breath of the Wild. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So of course, this is where we meet our first ever Link and Zelda, who are normal people, no princesses allowed, normal people. And throughout, I know it's so hard to pick now, isn't it? I just love them all. I'm just going to put it out. I love them all. But yeah, so we get to our first iteration, so to speak. And throughout their childhood is normal. There is a cloud barrier stopping them from going to the surface, so no one can go. It's just, they're all chilling in the sky, having a lovely time. But of course, something's got to happen at some point. So I'm not going to guess at what point in time this is. I'm just going to assume they're both 17, 18. That's typically whenever any YA character is has a terrible time. But thanks to the Demon Lord, our best friend Girahim, creating a tornado, Zelda is taken down to the surface and Link goes after her to save her. Of course, that's what any good person would do. Peak trauma time is this sort of time, especially for them. They go through a lot of trauma. And the rest of the game, essentially, I'm not going to go too much into it, I suppose, but you kind of need it for, the whole rest of the game is exploring the surface, meeting all the tribes again, exploring the surface, chasing after Zelda, and she also goes through the revelations of her own, of going to different springs, awakening memories of a different life. That life being of the goddess Hylia, and using those memories to keep her going in her mission, which ultimately their mission is to defeat Demise, whether they know it at that point or not. And I don't know how much depth to go into with Skyward Sword because I love it so much, but Zelda goes and awakens memories. Link is reforging what then becomes I suppose the first, if not second, iteration of the Master Sword. And at their reunion, which is the cutscene that I would say makes me bawl like a baby, this is the point where we learn the full story, which most of it I've just gone through. But of course, Link is the chosen hero of the goddess, and Zelda is the mortal incarnation of Hylia. So big shoes to fill on both sides. So while Zelda ensures that the seal holding Demise back stays, it's Link's duty to find the Triforce, which he does, and as a mortal, wishes for the destruction of Demise. We think that happens. It happens in the present. We have some fun times where, oh no, actually he is gonna get revived and all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, Demise is destroyed and sealed in the Master Sword forever. So we assume then, destiny is fulfilled, all is over. We don't need any more Zelda games. We're all done. But of course it's not the case, because again, we wouldn't be here if that was the case. So with his dying breath, so to speak, Demise is so infuriated by the fact that a little twink of a boy has come and messed up all his plans. And he creates a curse. I mean, Owl, am I wrong? And his curse affects all three of them, being Demise, Link and Zelda. So for those with, I don't have their amiibos to hand, but with the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero, not many people it could be. It's understandable he'd be mad, exactly, but what he does next is a bit much, personally. But those with the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero are eternally bound to this curse. I think he says an incarnation of my hatred will follow you for the rest of time, therefore dooming them to an eternal cycle of fighting over and over and over again, because any time evil arises, a hero and a princess must arrive to stop them, and it's just endless, endless, endless. I would like to point out, hold on, is it Demise that speaks about how he had no choice in who he was because the golden goddesses made him to be the shadow of Hylia's light? I think that could certainly be argued, because Link holds the sword of the goddess, which is the Master Sword, and has Fee, whereas Demise has the inverted version of the Master Sword and has his spirit of the blade, Girahim. So it definitely feels like that they are sort of light and shadow. I don't know if he speaks about not having a choice, but they are definitely opposites to one another. In Twilight Princess, it's Zelda who says, shadow and light are two sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. So it is always going to be some sort of dynamic there, but I like that a lot, Al, so I'm glad that you said that, because I don't remember the dialogue specifically, but if you are able to find that, please tell me, because that is brilliant. Toby, welcome in. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. But yeah, so if Demise is darkness, then why is he so fire? Honestly, Demise he has a great design, I have to say. He is really cool, and also is very respectful of Link, I must say. Obviously isn't happy that he's there, but is respectful of his courage, and I like that. I think for a villain, whenever villains are respectful of their enemy, I think is very nice. It's not just, oh, I don't like you because you're here. He has a warrior's honor, exactly. Like, and I like that about Demise. He's like, I'm still going to destroy you, but I can respect that you've had the audacity to get in my way, which I quite like. I can't remember either, but his fate kind of always been to live in hatred, and to be hatred is one of the crueler moves of the goddess. Like, they're not good or evil, they just are. I agree, the goddesses are completely neutral, and if anything, you could argue that the goddesses could have stopped Demise from cursing everyone. They could have, they could have put things in place. But they don't, because they're neutral parties, whether it be for good or for evil. And I wouldn't be surprised, because I know that in Echoes of Wisdom, the villain in that game does go into a bit of that, where it is the goddesses are sort of suppressing me in that sense. I mean, but what gives them the right to do so, sort of thing, And I think that is a very good exploration, especially in these games, because you can get into the calamity, malice, everything like that. It is like a physical manifestation of evil. But what gives us the right to say it's evil? And all that sort of thing. But I'm not going to go too much into that, because I think that's very deep. The goddesses are basically just watchers. Exactly. Like, they are just there. They have their favourites, Faror, Nehru, and Din. I would actually like to just go slightly off topic and say, in regards to the goddess's favourite, of course, Link is Faror's favourite, Zelda is Nehru's favourite, and Din is technically Ganon's favourite, or Ganondorf. I read somewhere, and again, I can't remember where this was. I think it was in the lore somewhere. But something I read at one point was technically Impa, the goddess's warden, was supposed to have the Triforce of Power, but Ganondorf took it from her. I don't know how true that is, but I think that is a very cool concept, because it would make sense, as the Sheikah are guardians and, wardens for the goddess. It would make sense. I kind of like that idea. I will have to try and find that at some point. Like, it does make sense, doesn't it? Like, it was either a theory or it was something in writing, but I thought that was genuinely really cool. I really like that. So yeah, I've read that somewhere. It was definitely on Zelda Dungeon or something like that. But yes, so I would say that is the absolute foundation of Hyrule, being the creation story and Skyward Sword. It is supposed to canonically be a part of the start of the Zelda series, because it is the first Link and Zelda, technically, is the first incarnation of evil, and it starts the curse, which then leads into the rest of the game. So I think from a new game, if you're getting into this series for the first time, Skyward Sword is very lore heavy. Personally, I love lore. I like learning things, so it works for me. I know some people really struggle with like heavy lore games, but oh, do not get me started on this area. Chloe, why did you film this? Anyway, but yeah, it's the perfect place to start. Exactly, and Impa could use it responsibly. And again, you could argue, there are times Ganon has been good before being turned to evil, so technically he could use it responsibly, but yeah, we're getting deep there. Gobbling up all the lore, I love this. So yeah, so you may want me to cry. I do. Because in the meantime, we've got all these traumatic places in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I hope you noticed that I had Black Tree Plains in there as well. Aha, the old female storyteller who feeds information to Zelda is named Impa. Her name comes from the word impart. Makes sense? Impa, Link, and Zelda were the guardians of the Triforce. Ah, okay. Today, when you think of the characters who are connected to the Triforce, you think of Link, Zelda, and Ganon. But it is that stated in Ocarina of Time. Originally, Ganon was only a villain in relentless pursuit of the Triforce. That's it. Thank you so much, Sophie, for finding that. I knew that was somewhere. Like, I hadn't made that up. And the thing is, maybe I did see it in Hyrule Historia. Also, Miyamoto, please. Like, isn't that really cool? Like, that is so cool. The power of Google, and also The power of my own knowledge. That is how deep this gets. But thank you for finding that, Sophie. I'm so glad I didn't just make that up. I knew I'd had that somewhere. Let's go. But yes, I think that's really cool that Impa is supposed to have a bigger role, but it has been taken from her. And I mean, she never seems too fussed about that. She's happy where she is. But you know, if I didn't know I was supposed to have the Triforce, you know. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. So, explains why Impa gets incarnated. That is true, actually. That is true, why she gets reincarnated a lot. Because she has that role to play as the one who imparts knowledge, but also it would make sense. Yes, and there is the whole, I think it's called the Tetraforce, like the whole idea where there is a fourth part of the Triforce, which is like that middle bit, that blank bit in the middle, and that would make sense. That's Beedle. I would love it if Beedle had a higher role, because he's incarnated a lot too. Just gonna point that out there. Just saying. Just putting that out there. I love Beedle. I'm saying. I thought it was Tingle. Tingle could be on there. No, you're all forgetting about the Legend of Groose. Putting that out. He's the hero of time. Well, he does. He's there a lot of the time. Just putting that out there. Oh, the shiny silent princesses. Okay. So, Loki, isn't it implied Groose is like a Gerudo ancestor? Yes, because he has red hair and like gold eyes. I think he has yellow eyes. Yeah, he does. Yeah, he has yellow eyes because he like gets right in your face and you're like, oh, okay. Oh, Elven Fangirl, hello! This is fascinating to listen to while I keep drawing. Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you to say. I hope I'm not, well, I am rambling, but I hope I'm not rambling too much. Unless you are lurking, which is perfectly valid, I would love to know what you're drawing. Or a random blue piece in the last one. Oh, yes! Oh my god, I wish I'd gotten, maybe I'd have to get one of the cave entrances. I'd love to do one of these videos again. Because I've done a sunrise one, I've done a sunset one. Oh, it's raining. No, I turned it off then. Groose can't get a girlfriend, but he only has female descendants. It's like the gods are poking fun at him. Groose is my favourite. I love him. He's a brilliant character. Not this. So. That's a bird if I ever read one. We love Groose in this house. Lurking a bit, yeah, but I'm cleaning up the piece I was streaming earlier. Really? Oh, that's so exciting. Oh my god, please. I will be so excited to see that in a little bit. I will be eagerly awaiting to see that one. That'll be really exciting. Yeah. Oh, it's covered up. Frodo's covered up, but it's fine. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm hanging out with family, so can't stick around. Maybe later if you're still alive, but I love you all. I love you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for the long time support and enjoy the time with your family. If I'm still alive, that would be lovely to see you, but enjoy your time. And yes, I'm going to follow. Please. Yay. Yes, please make sure you follow an Elven Fangirl. Excuse me, I just hiccuped. Thank you for the follow, by the way. All the real ones love Groose. Honestly. Wonderful character. Beautifully done. Yes, happy midsummer as well. It is the summer solstice tomorrow for us, where we'll be celebrating. But yeah, happy midsummer rather. Okay, I'm all excited now. I'm ready to go. So, next in our wonderful little list, as I say, I'm going through the main parts of the timeline. So I will be missing some games, but you know, no offense to Minish Cap or anything. So the next main game in the timeline is quite a significant one. After Skyward Sword, and I believe then after Minish Cap, or whichever one it is at that point, the next mainline Zelda game in the timeline, after the creation of Hyrule and Demise and everyone, and Skyward Sword and all that sort of stuff, is Ocarina of Time. Now, the reason Ocarina of Time is so important is not only because it was the first 3D Zelda game that created such an impact. Yeah, Eslo is just like, Excuse me? It's fine, Eslo. We'll get back to you later. Is Ocarina of Time. And yes, not only because it was the first 3D Zelda game that captured so many people's hearts. Oh, this scene, honestly. This is Dragonhead Island, which I love. I'll just point out it's all... Oh no, that's Thunderhead Island. No, this is all covered in like thunderstorms and stuff until you clear it. Honestly, the music. Chef's kiss. I made sure I found like the best areas like that were like perfectly framed, and I would like to toot my own horn and say I think I've found some really good areas. It also goes through the chronology of the game, so you start on, thank you, you start on the Great Sky Island, you go to Lookout Landing, you go to Black Tree Plains on your way to Kakariko, you go to each of the 4 areas, and then you end up on Dragonhead Island, which I would like to say if you follow the chronology of Tis the Kingdom. So thank you all. I'm just going to toot my own horn there before we get into Ocarina of Time. So yeah, that's a good time to take a sip of my drink actually. Toot indeed. Oh gosh, I'm going to have to move, but almost sticky. Oh no, there we go. Okay, so Ocarina of Time. So... I would like to say most people know this one. Toot your own kazoo. I will when I have it. So the most important part of Ocarina of Time, in regards to the history, is the fact that we have time travel. So we follow Link and Navi, his fairy, on a journey through Hyrule to stop the Gerudo King Ganondorf from his ill intentions of getting the Triforce. And as a part of this, the Master Sword is the key component into entering the sacred realm where the Triforce is. So they go through the journey to protect that. But unfortunately, that plan does not work. They work very hard with the princess, but unfortunately, it doesn't go to plan. But that's okay, because either in the lore or from something the goddesses did, I don't know. The only one who can pull the Master Sword at this point is known as the Hero of Time. But you can't ask a 10-year-old to be able to save the world, apart from Wind Waker, I will argue. They changed their minds at the point of Wind Waker. So Link sleeps for 7 years, not quite Breath of the Wild, but no one listens to Zelda's dreams. Honestly, no one listens to Zelda, and this is the point they get to. So Link sleeps for 7 years until he's old enough to be the hero that he's supposed to be. And this allows us to therefore go back and forth between being a child and being an adult to help stop Ganondorf, who has since claimed the Triforce and taken over the world. Honestly, I would love to sleep. Most of the time, apart from missing my wedding, I would love to sleep for 7 years. If they listened to Zelda, so many problems would have been avoided. I absolutely agree. And Jazz, welcome in for 24 months. It is so lovely to have you here. How are you today? Oh, I'm so sorry. I keep getting distracted, but I've got so many lovely people. So yes, so as a part of that, we have time travel. Just getting back into it. So Link saves each of the sages who help him to defeat Ganondorf with the princess. And it's a lovely time. Ha, no pun intended. But this is the point where the historical timeline of the Zelda universe splits, which is again very controversial. But technically we've got different series of events happening. In Ocarina of Time, we've got what's going on when Link was a child, what's going on when Link was an adult, and then a third timeline, which I'll get to shortly. So the timeline splits into 3. The first timeline is what happens when Link is sent back to be a child and enjoy his life, as Zelda says at the end, to live the way he was supposed to be. That is the one timeline. We have the second timeline where in that future where Link is an adult, what happens after he leaves, and there's only the princess and the sages left. They have to rebuild, they have to survive and regrow. And then the third timeline that splits off is what happens if Ganondorf is not defeated, which is where Link dies, which is incredibly dark. I mean, we get to Breath, not quite to Breath of the Wild yet, but I would argue that is a very dark timeline. Yes, enjoy life with a bunch of baggage and trauma. I'm not saying Zelda's decision was good, but she tried. So, we're going to start with the child timeline first. So what happens after the end of Ocarina of Time, where Ganondorf is defeated, and yes, Zelda, with her good intentions, sends Link back to be a child, as he was at the very start of the game. So at this point, things are still quite bad, but they're fixable, because Link can go back with the knowledge of, well, this is how Ganondorf got to the Triforce, so we can put things in place to stop that. So they, you can argue that they can make a better future now that they have more information, and we've got to Owl's favourite. Owl is ready with the popcorn. So Link goes back to be a child. Navi, his dear beloved fairy, leaves. For whatever reason, we don't know. Maybe she just thought he smelled, but she leaves, which is extremely sad. And traumatic as well, because that is your best friend who has been with you through everything, has just left with no reason at all. So Link does the natural thing a 10-year-old would do, and up his life and goes after her and tries to find her. Whilst he's doing that, or maybe beforehand, but whilst this is going on, with said knowledge of... hold on. I remember a theory that she leaves because her purpose is up. She's basically dying. I would very much... Yeah, that feels right. She's there to look after the Kokiri. She's there as a guardian, but she has fulfilled her purpose, and also she's left the forest as well, which technically people of the forest shouldn't be doing, but it's very sad, but I would not be surprised, in all honesty. Their story is very tragic. Do I get to this bit yet? Yes. Whilst this is going on, whilst Link is going off to find Navi and, find his friend, let's not get to that yet. Something happens, but we'll get back to that. Extra trauma because he hasn't had enough. We can sit here all day and argue which Link is the most traumatized. Ocarina of Time Link is definitely up there. Yeah, cute little bonus trauma. Love this for him. So anyway, Link goes after Navi and goes through the forest because that's where they grew up. And somehow manages to find essentially an alternate world called Termina in the depths of the Lost Woods. And this alternate world is the setting for Majora's Mask, which I would just like to say, I believe was made in a year and was based on a dream that either Miyamoto or one of the developers had. And Majora's Mask is definitely a beloved one. / maybe has a dream / maybe... Yeah, so it's difficult to understand. This part of the child timeline, it's a bit complicated, in all honesty, but we'll just say Link finds this alternative world called Termina, which is a world in which there are 3 days before the moon crashes down on the world. So again, just peppering the world with a little bit more trauma. And through going through his adventures to find Navi, he finds new fairy friends, meets lots of amazing people, which are all very similar to the people he's already met, but are just slightly different. Literally, the character models are the same. and manages to defeat the creature controlling the moon, which is Majora's Mask. Again, incredible game. Wonderful exploration of grief, and yeah. Imagine moving to a new town and finding out it's going to blow up in 3 days. It's going to be traumatic. But it's fine. He fixes it. It's alright, he's fine. And also you're 10. Just putting that out there. There's a lot going on. And again, lots of people have gone into Majora's Mask and how it explores grief and trauma, and I will play it on stream at some point. All of this happens when he is a child. He has gone through all of this and he is still a child. Can we just preface this? I know we go through like young adult, like YA novels and how young these people are when they're going through these traumatic things. We can very much say the same for Zelda games. And again, it's not like Zelda herself doesn't have her own trauma, but particularly in this part of the Zelda history, this is very traumatic for Link. He has a rough time. So yeah, in this time, he's saved the world, 2 worlds, has done it in 2 different bodies, I must say, 2 completely different experiences, met people, lost people, had a very traumatic time. But ultimately, at the end of Majora's Mask, despite all the friends he's made and the experiences he's had, he still doesn't find Navi. And so continues to search for her after his adventure is over. And I would argue one of the most chilling things is written in the Hyrule Historia for this part of the timeline. And it says, the Hero of Time's whereabouts after this point are unknown. Which is just quite traumatic. I think it's very terrifyingly written to have a character that you've gone through 2 whole games with and 2 whole experiences with, and then is gone. Has not heard from. Extremely worrying, yes, and it's completely heartbreaking. Yeah, there's a lot, and we will go a little bit more into that after. That means we could see this Link again. I'll get to that. Very true. Exactly. So, there is a lot of theories about what happens after Majora's Mask, and I will get to that when we get onto the next game in the timeline. Because again, it goes a little bit quite deep. Hint, hint. It goes a little bit deeper, but let's stick to the fact that after Majora's Mask, we don't know what happens. In the meantime, back in Hyrule, as I've sort of hinted at before, the goal is to figure out what to do with Ganondorf, because now that they've seen what happens in the future, they know he's evil, they just need to stop him before he claims the Triforce. So what they do is they arrest him. They arrest Ganondorf. Owl, I see where you're looking. They arrest him and they sentence him to die. They sentence him to death. On what grounds this is based on, it is difficult to say. Because technically at this point, has he done anything? Has he not? We don't know. I'm not trying to argue here or there, but I'm just saying, from this point of view, he's arrested and he's sentenced to death. So they're just going for it. They are just getting rid of the problem. Probably treachery, actually. That is probably a good point. I forgot about that. He does kind of, stage a coup, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's most likely going to be treachery. Thank you, actually. On the grounds, he's a little brat. Yes. So, and conspiracy. That is very true. Yes, medieval past. So yeah, he conspired against the king. He was going to take the Triforce, take Hyrule. So yeah, that's true, actually. On that basis, they sentence him to die. Which they do. The sages sentence him to death. But because he has the Triforce of Power at this point, he is able to somehow survive death. and goes on a rampage. He kills one of the sages in this rampage and goes for it because essentially kind of gets a god complex from it. You know, I am so powerful, I have survived death, you cannot stop me, you never will. So the sages in that moment make a decision. Based on where they are, they can send him through a portal to a different world. Which I believe is described sort of like the antithesis of Hyrule. So they decide, well, we can't kill the problem, let's move the problem out of Hyrule. So they send him through this portal to what is called the Twilight Realm. And that is where the basis of the next game will come. I believe it is the Sage of Water. I believe it, but don't quote me on that. For some reason I've got it in my head that it is the Water Sage, but don't quote me on that. But then again, someone has said it as well, so I will argue something like that. I believe it's the Water Sage. But yeah, so they send him through the portal. So at this point in the timeline, okay, cool, right, we've all got the same brain cell, or we're all right. Yes. So at this point, Hyrule is kind of okay. We don't know what has happened to Link. Ganondorf is taken care of. Zelda is, we don't know. But again, some sort of peace is maintained for a bit. Until we get to Twilight Princess. Which, again, I think some argue it's about 100 years after Ocarina of Time. And the Link in Twilight Princess is related to Ocarina of Time Link. I don't know. There's lots of theories about when this takes place. But the next game along is Twilight Princess. Please tell me your very important message. Oh, the toilet paper one. Got you. So next we get to Twilight Princess, which I believe is Owl's favourite. I would argue. Is the most like Owl's personality. Like very aesthetic. I love Twilight Princess. It was my first Zelda game. And I love it. I love it so much. I love it. Yes. I love it too. Yay! Oh, I'm glad. We had a lot of fun playing Twilight Princess on stream. It is a long game, but it is very fun. It was the first one you played too. I love this for us, all having this collective experience. I feel like the day I finally play Twilight Princess, I will ascend to peak gainers. Please. Because you all saw my reaction to Twilight Princess Zelda. Twilight Princess and Joy are also sexy and correct about everything always. Lovers. First game to make me cry. For me, that was Skyward Sword, but Twilight Princess is very emotive as well. So yeah, so we reached Twilight Princess, which already a lot of love for. So Ganondorf is sealed in the Twilight Realm, but equally he wants to escape. I love a woo Link. We'll get to that. Oh yeah, I should really explain that, yeah. So Ganondorf obviously wants to escape. Literally said that on my stream earlier. Skyward Sword made me cry. I bawled like a baby, and I still do. I love Skyward Sword. My first was Ocarina of Time. I love it. And the mini games. Let's dive into Twilight Princess. I feel like one of those those nerds. Let's dive in. Let's do a deep dive. So yeah, of course. Yeah. So Ganondorf is trying to escape the Twilight Realm because he has unfinished business. He recruits Zant, who is a member of, sort of like a servant to the royal family in Twilight Princess. And essentially Zant is his puppet to help take over the Twilight Realm and then bring the power of the Twilight Realm out into Hyrule and plunge it into darkness so Ganon can return. He's paving the way for Ganon's return. So that is what Zant does. He attacks the royal family. He attacks the princess of Twilight and shuns her into the body of an imp. She manages to just about escape and reaches out into Hyrule, which Zant has then gone on to attack and spreads Twilight, which is eternal sunset across many parts of Hyrule. Pretty much completely covers it. And when the twilight descends, that anyone who is a being of light, so any Hylian, Goron, Zora, anyone, they become spirits. So they have no corporeal form. They just float around. They don't know what's happened to them. They just go about their business, but they're spirits. That is it. Until the twilight reaches a little town at the edge of Hyrule called Ordon, which is where this version's Link is. Now, because he has the special, and I don't mean any sort of neurodivergency, though we could argue that, because of the Triforce of Courage, and any bearer of the Triforce isn't affected by the Twilight like normal people are. So somehow, for some reason, when the Twilight attacks and Link is in it, he becomes a wolf, which is wonderful. It's great. All the furries love it. It's actually a really cool design. And so the Princess of Twilight, called Midna, everyone's favourite, recruits his help to stop Zant. Why? Because it's cool and sick. I am not saying that it's not. I'm saying it's awesome. I love it. But yeah, so she recruits his help. I say recruit, more so put the medieval version of a gun to his head and said, do it. But we all love Midna in this house. I love her. She's a sassy queen, and I love her. So yeah, starting their adventure, ridding Hyrule of Twilight, and, you know, starting to restore the peace. And ultimately saving the princess, who has been trapped inside the castle, even though she's a badass and wields a sword. And I love Twilight Princess Zelda's design. She's brilliant. I love her. That is a historical reenactment of what Midna did. But yes, so they go through their adventure. They take the fight straight to Zant. They defeat Zant. They learn actually Ganon's the one pulling the strings. So they take the fight to Ganon. They defeat Ganon. It's a great time. Midna is returned to her original sexy ass form. And at the end of the game, to everyone's heartbreak, she returns to the Twilight Realm, and she breaks the only way into it. She breaks the Mirror of Twilight. So by the end of Twilight Princess, Ganondorf is gone. Hyrule has been restored to light, and the Twilight Realm can no longer be accessed. So in all, no one can be sent back, no evil can be sent there, which was the sages said that this was a mistake to send Ganondorf there. We shouldn't have sent you our trash, I believe is one of the things from one fanfic I read before. We don't want your trash. So everything's done, everything's dusted, peace has been restored, everyone is back where they should be, and one of the few ships that never sailed with Link and Midna. That boat sank, I'm afraid, but we've got the Twilight Princess manga to go for instead, which is fine. That fulfills any sort of preference in that way. And so my understanding is that Twilight Princess then brings an end to that part of the timeline. But there was a topic I missed during Twilight Princess, and I want to bring it up because it is, to me, one of the coolest things about Twilight Princess, because it's never really been completely confirmed by Nintendo, but kind of sort of has been as well. And that is the character of the hero Shade, who is a skeletal creature, being, who appears... No, not that Zelda was a lesbian. Oh, that too. We can talk to cats in Twilight Princess. Okay, fine. One of the coolest parts, okay? Fine. But that's one side. Okay. And this character appears every now and again in wolf form and skeletal form, and teaches the Link of that era several sword techniques, which come in very goddamn useful, I must say. They are some incredible, like, they're genuine, like, gameplay wise, they're very cool, and aesthetically, they're very cool as well. So this character of the Hero Shade is wearing plate armor, has a sword and shield, and honestly, I would argue, yes, Twilight Princess has some of the best combat in the series, particularly those skills. Chef's kiss, love them. So yeah, and you can slash your sword whilst running. That is a good point. Can you do that on Breath of the Wild? Yeah, you can. Can you do that on Breath of the Wild? I don't think you can. I don't know. I can't remember now. But yeah, so this is it's like a mysterious figure. You can't. Then Twilight Princess is better. And yeah, so it's difficult because this character just appears, and we don't know much about them, apart from the fact that they're very cool and have some great lines of dialogue. Like they're great. But it's clear that they were once some sort of warrior. And there is a theory, a game theory, that the Hero Shade is Link from Ocarina of Time / Majora's Mask. So the point in which I said before that the whereabouts of the Hero of Time after Majora's Mask is unknown, there is a theory as to what happened to him, and subsequently his presence then in Twilight Princess. So he was searching the Lost Woods for Navi, his little fairy friend. And for anyone who is becomes lost in the Lost Woods, becomes a skeleton. So like the Stal children that you fight, and you know the Stalfos and those sort of things. Now, Link was in the Lost Woods. Would I'd argue know his way around because he grew up there, but may have become lost and became a skeletal creature, which then leads into the Hero Shade, who is a skeletal creature and is wearing armor, has a shield like the one Link has in, I think, Majora's Mask, and is incredibly skilled. So you could argue that the Hero Shade is Link from Ocarina of Time, and it's not been entirely confirmed, it's not been entirely denied. I think it's very cool, and left-handed as well. Thank you, that's very true. And as I say, it has some great one-liners, as Owl said. A sword yields no strength unless the hand of it holds courage, and the things like that, and it's just beautiful. And talks a lot about like regrets that he had in life, and you know, wanting to ease those regrets and all those sort of things. Incredible character. Just wanted to point that out as the theory behind what happened between Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. I just think it's really cool. He's a really good character. Very well fleshed out, pun intended. And if that theory is true, which I personally believe the theory, I think it stands up to the test of time. I think it's very cool. I really like that. So I just wanted to touch back on that before we moved on, because I didn't want to miss that. I don't want to miss out on that, because it's very cool. Thank you for your really noisy car. Anyway, so I'd say that would then put an end to the childhood timeline. I always thought he was just decomposed rather than he turned into a Stalfos. Almost like he is buried somewhere and this is him appearing to Link metaphysically. That could also be very true, actually, yes. Because in Twilight Princess HD, he has more of like an actual human outline as well as the skeletal. That is very true as well. I just like the idea that they already hinted that those lost in the Lost Woods would become skeletal, but equally it could just be that he went searching for so long that it just died. Like his consciousness held on for a purpose that maybe he didn't know about. I do like that too. Yeah, I really like that, because ultimately spirit of the hero is never going to rest. So, you know, his role, like you say, his purpose that maybe he didn't know about was then to ensure that his descendant would then be able to fulfill his own duty. And I like that. Exactly, you could come up with so many theories as to who they are. Rather, I should be saying he, but you know who they are, and all of them would hold some sort of ground, I would say, because they are so mysterious. And yeah, I love that. Like I say, there's the theory that Ocarina of Time Link and Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess Link, sorry, are actually related, because he says, "Go and do not falter, my child." Again, that's probably just like a familial sort of phrase, but some people have said, well, if we take that literally, there could be some sort of, you know, blood relative there, or, you know, whatever. Yeah, there's loads of theories that you could come up with, and I really like that. I think that is, it's just, yeah, it's not impossible. That one I'm less bothered with, but yes, there is also the theory that Twilight Princess Link comes from if Ocarina of Time Link and Malon, like, married and, you know, had kids and stuff, which would make sense because Ordon is a farming village, Malon, Lon Ranch. Like, it's, yeah, there's definitely, I get that theory. I've heard that one before, and it does make a lot of sense. And I think it's nice as well, because that sort of brings the idea that Ocarina of Time Link hope maybe found some sort of peace, which is nice given everything he goes through. And the fact Twilight Princess' armor is... Yes, exactly, yeah, the Spirit Guardian says that the tunic he wears is the same one that the previous hero wore. Which, damn, I never thought clothes would, you know, last that long and still be good. But yeah, there's a lot of connections between them two specifically, I agree. And like, I could sit here and theorize all day about them and how they're connected and everything in between. So, like I said, there's so many great theories, and I think that's why, why Twilight Princess has a lot of love, because there's so much lore in it that you don't see at face value. And yeah, I just love it. And you know, the whole thing about why is the hero Shade only got one eye? You know, these sort of things, because he's only got one glowy eye, the other one's dark. Did he lose his eye? How did he do that? You know, all these things. But a brilliant character, and I just wanted to sort of, not pay tribute, but you know, just whilst we're going through the history of Hyrule, he has a very important role to play. Even though we don't necessarily know the entirety of it. He's a really fun character. And I just wanted to touch on that before we went on to the next bit. Because he's cool. He's cool. I want to talk about him. And I know when I talk to Michael a lot, when I yap at him about Zelda history and stuff, I know he really likes the hero Shade. So I kind of wanted to say, this one's for you, sweetie. Just putting that there. Okay, so... also wonder if he chooses to appear as a wolf. And exactly, there are the theories. You know, why does he become a wolf? How does he become a wolf? It's cool. Why is he a golden wolf? I don't know. Or if he is just that way. Like, look, I could sit here all day, and I just love it. Because this is what I personally love about the Linktober Creator Con, is everyone is coming together and just saying, look, I just want to celebrate this series. Like, I do. Like, I just want to celebrate this series and all it's done for people, all it's done for other people, and, you know, the joy and the theorizing and all. It just is great. So, just a quick shout out to there, just saying. So yeah, so let's move on to, honestly, a celebration of yappery. Like, is this not the most me stream I've ever done? So we're gonna nicely then move on to timeline 2. Well, pathway to, I don't know, however you want to theorize it. So this is at the end, back to the end of Ocarina of Time. Ganondorf's been defeated. Zelda sends Link back in time. But we stay with that Zelda and that time. So Link is no longer there. Ganondorf has been taken care of. What happens now? And for a while, not much. I'm safe to assume it's going to be a lot of rebuilding. Hyrule Castle is gone. It's collapsed. Ganondorf took it over and it collapsed. A lot of rebuilding, you know, starting to restore Hyrule sort of thing. But, as is per usual, some sort of evil rises up again. I assume, based on the game that is coming up, that it is another iteration of Ganondorf. But it's not really sort of explained specifically, but I would safely assume it's another Ganondorf. But because Link was sent back in time, in the way that this timeline works, there is no hero. Because one was already here and is still technically alive, just somewhere else. So there's not another one to come and take his place. So, you know, this evil is here, the princess is here, but there is no hero. And what do we do? Because that's how the story goes. You know, it's how every fairy tale, you know, it's how these stories go. And what happens if he's not there? And by some sort of, I suppose, divine act, whether it was on the Triforce, something else, or I believe I think either it's in the game or it's a theory that it is purely divine interventions from the goddesses themselves, which again, they're neutral characters, so they shouldn't intervene, but I genuinely can't remember. Hyrule is flooded. So what happens is those who have been chosen are sent to the mountains in time just to survive, and the rest of Hyrule is flooded to suppress this evil and keep it at bay. And yeah, Hyrule is completely flooded. Those on the mountains are the only ones who survive, and those mountains then become the islands in what becomes the Great Sea. So it's just an endless expanse of water, which Hyrule is very, very much below it, and just this scattering of islands and people who then rebuild and start again, which again is incredibly traumatic. I would just say, like, if you were that person, that's terrifying. But anyway, we're going to put that to one side. The goddess's solution to everyone being yeah, we'll just put everyone really high up and then drown everyone else. Like, Nintendo, what were you thinking? Incredibly dark. But yeah, so again, I think this is a story of Hyrule rebuilding, you know, going again and again and again, and just persevering. But ultimately, said evil, Ganondorf, which I guess, yeah, it definitely is always destined to come back. How he returns, I can't remember, or I don't know. I don't think it's explained, but he comes back. Of course he does. But the world's, it's really a new world, and it needs a new hero, and it needs a new princess. Which is where we get to a really fun, personally, iteration of Link and Zelda. Where Link's just a guy, as per usual, with family, I will just hasten to point out, and Tetra, who is a pirate captain, who is at the sassiest, and I love her. She's brilliant. I love Tetra. She's great. And it is now up to them to stop Ganondorf. But the problem is, because of this flood, no one really knows the history of Hyrule. You know, there are traditions that are passed on, but apart from that, no one really knows the history. Just that everything went terribly and now we're here. So they have very little information to go on, apart from the old, you know, a character we'll get to, but a boat, the King of Red Lions. And yeah, they're very much two characters who have genuinely no idea what's going on. They're just there, you know, Link's going after his sister. Tetra's just like, she's just having a good time until her world gets turned upside down. And they're both able to travel down below the sea, down to the seabed. Kids these days don't even know about Noboru. Queen, I love her. But yeah, they travel down to the seabed where the original Hyrule was. You know, the Master Sword is still there. That can still be claimed. Hyrule is still there. It has been protected all this time by magic. It's been preserved. So they discover the original Hyrule and learn about their destiny to stop Ganondorf, who is causing havoc on, you know, across the sea, because he wants the Triforce. And they happen to have the Triforce of Courage and the Triforce of Wisdom. And he has the Triforce of Power. So, bam, put them together, what do you got? Full Triforce. So they, again, start on this journey. And I would argue have one of the most badass final bosses. I would argue. Because as per usual, Zelda's kidnapped. Well, not Zelda, Tetra, because Tetra is Princess Zelda. Her identity has been hidden this whole time. And aside from, I'm going to briefly touch on the fact that her skin colour definitely changes between Tetra and her Princess Zelda form. Put that to one side. She's kidnapped, because Ganon goes like, where's Zelda? There she is. And we have this final boss battle at the top of Ganon's tower in the original Hyrule that was flooded. And it's awesome. It's badass. The Triforce is reunited. The said boat, who is the original king of Hyrule, spoilers, makes a wish on the Triforce before Ganon does, and he wishes for Hyrule to be completely flooded, so the actual Hyrule that was preserved would be completely destroyed. So we're having this final boss battle with Ganon whilst Hyrule is being flooded, and it is incredible. It's so cool. It's so atmospheric. But yes, so that Hyrule is then laid to waste. It is completely flooded. It is gone. Ganondorf is defeated. The Master Sword plunged into his head. Badass. And ultimately left behind in the original Hyrule so it can rest. And that old Hyrule is now completely gone. The one from Ocarina of Time, that is gone. And is now up to Link and Tetra to essentially found the new Hyrule, which is when we get into like the DS games with Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, my beloved. But it's just a very interesting take, and I love that. Was the kingdom flooded and the Triforce destroyed in the same act? My understanding is the kingdom is flooded. I don't think... It's tricky to say, because I don't know. I would argue the Triforce can't be destroyed. Or isn't gonna be, I don't know. But you don't see it again in that timeline. You don't see it in Phantom Hourglass, you don't see it in Spirit Tracks. So you could argue that it is destroyed, and it's because it's never heard from again. Yeah, so the Triforce... Ganondorf claims the Triforce of Power. Zelda has the Triforce of Wisdom, which is broken, and Link also gets the Triforce of Courage, which is again broken. So they restore those pieces. Those pieces create the full Triforce, and then all that happens is the king touches it. The Triforce makes its wish and then disappears, I think. So it's very ambiguous. So I think it could be argued either way. I'd never really thought about it, to be honest, but I could see both sides of it either being destroyed or not. I think for something that powerful, I think it would take quite a lot for it to be destroyed, apart from you just wishing, I wish the Triforce to be gone. I'm not sure though. Can we please have a Zelda University where we sit and have lectures and share theories and write dissertations? For real, please. I would found that uni. You know I would. I would do that all day. Like, could you imagine? Like, all you've got is, like, the Night Academy music whilst people go between lectures. Oh, I would love that. So, yeah, so the adult timeline is quite short and sweet. Because really, once the original Hyrule is flooded, you know, it's for a new world to be created, a new Hyrule to be made and founded and looked after. And yeah, I mean, specifically the first time. Okay. Like the pieces being scattered, were they scattered with the intention they could be found again? I suppose so, yeah. Because ultimately, even though the goddesses are a neutral party, the Triforce is meant to be one piece, isn't it? You know, it's supposed to be united. So I suppose to stop Ganondorf from finding it and using it, it was broken into pieces and scattered. So then it would take more effort to find it and it would be more difficult. I think that would be... I feel like my personal understand... Well, I don't know. It could either be the actual flooding of Hyrule in the first place was either someone... like the King of Hyrule wished it on the Triforce. To, you know, save his people and destroy Ganon. Or it was divine intervention from the goddesses, which would be very unlike them. But, I mean, equally, the situation is different this time. There's no hero. But again, they could move things in a way to bring one there. I don't know. I never really thought about it. It's very vague. And I think because we've only got Wind Waker as the main part, you know, the main part of this timeline, there's not enough games to go into depth. Like, I don't know, like with Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask, you can kind of see where the theories are and, you know, you can see how it's connected. But with Wind Waker, it just says Hyrule was flooded, that was it. It, from my memory, it doesn't go into that much detail about the actual flooding itself, which would be incredible. Like, that would be an amazing game, I have to say, to figure out, like, to know that you... Yes, Ocarina of Time Ganon and Wind Waker Ganon were the same. I think that too. I think it would make sense because... Or would it? Because technically in the adult timeline, he's been defeated. But then again, he does talk about Gerudo Desert. So is it the same one? I genuinely don't know. I think they probably are. I know I said before that a new evil rises up, but I will retract that because I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's a very vague timeline. And we haven't even got onto the Vegas timeline. Which, to be honest, I know very little about. That theory I was telling you about before. Yes, that Daphne, so the king in Wind Waker is the one in Ocarina of Time. That makes sense to me. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because we don't... He looks like... Oh, no, he doesn't look like it, actually. But we don't see the king in Ocarina of Time. But, like, it makes sense. Like, I get that. But, yeah, that adult timeline is very vague. So it's hard to pick it out. So again, it's one that's very easy to theorize about because you could say anything. But then as a final one, just to wrap up on the timeline, so to speak, the last timeline that is created from Ocarina of Time it's called the Downfall timeline. So the one that I said before that was very dark, because it is. So this timeline that breaks off from at the end of Ocarina of Time is essentially what happens if Ganon succeeds. So my assumption based on that is at the final battle, Link dies, or something happens where Ganon wins. What happens after that? And personally, I think this was Nintendo's way of saying, well, these games over here, where do we fit them in? So we've got the original Legend of Zelda, we've got Zelda 2, and I think some have argued Echoes of Wisdom comes into this timeline as well. But it's essentially what happens after Ganon wins. And in all honesty, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I can't remember. I can't remember what happens, but it does make sense in the sense that in the first Zelda game you just appear and you've got this whole world. Ganon is there, yes, he's in the first game. You know, you've got this evil that you need to defeat. Everything's already happened. It's just a new hero rises up to defeat him. Yeah, it was a bit of Scrabble of just be like, where do we put these? It kind of works that Hyrule has fallen, and these games kind of go through an idea of something bad has already happened, so it kind of makes sense, you know. And then Zelda 2 comes after Zelda 1, and Echoes of Wisdom, again, I can see that. And Echoes of Wisdom does go back to the creation story as well, and kind of goes to before the creation story as well, and goes into a bit more depth with that one. So yeah, it's a very weird timeline. It's all the other games that don't quite fit into the other two. But it's very, yeah, I think Echoes of Wisdom does fit in that one. Like, it definitely doesn't fit in the other two. It makes sense, and I would just like to say I love Echoes of Wisdom. It is a great game, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's an interesting timeline, and again, you can already tell I don't know a lot about it, even though we've got the whole Hyrule Historia that talks you through the different games. It's just a bit of a forgotten one, because it is just a bit of, well, these all kind of fit, so let's put them together. And also, we don't want to talk about when Hyrule falls. Like, we don't want to talk about the bad times. We haven't got to the trauma of Breath of the Wild yet. Like, we don't want to talk about the bad times. You know, we want to talk about the more interesting times when, you know, good prevails and what becomes, you know, what comes after that. We don't want to talk about the bad times. And also, like, I don't know. Yeah, and also those games, you know, the original Legend of Zelda, it wasn't lore heavy because it was the first game. Like, it was completely open world. You know, you go off and you explore, and it's based on, I think, Miyamoto, his desire to, like, explore his own, like, hometown and, you know, the forest and the woodland. And, you know, it was based more on the exploration part rather than, right, let's get into the thick of the lore. That's where, like, A Link to the Past comes in, which I believe is actually in the Downfall timeline. That would make sense. You know, A Link to the Past was the one where they were like, right, let's establish the groundwork of this game. Yes, and that's true. Yeah, so A Link Between Worlds is Downfall as well. That's true. So it's kind of like there's so many games in this bad ending timeline, but it makes sense. You know, Zelda 1, then Zelda 2. Well, they're connected. A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds, they're connected. And then I guess you'd argue Link's Awakening and therefore Echoes of Wisdom. They'll be in there too. It makes sense, but it's a really big timeline that is a bit vague as well. So yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting one. And I kind of do want to go back and look at the timeline again, because as I say, it just feels a bit like these are all the games we can't fit into a timeline, which is why a lot of people then argue, what is the point of the timeline? Because the game, you're not meant to crowbar the games into one definitive timeline. They're just Zelda games. They just happen. You know, these can be at any point in the history of Hyrule, and they just go wherever. It doesn't matter. It's only like Skyward Sword. That's the first one, and Majora's Mask comes after Ocarina of Time. You know, those are the ones you know. But apart from that, you know, people argue it should be quite free flow, but other people are like, actually, no, the timeline makes a lot of sense. So, I see both sides of it. It makes sense they have no foundation to know what to do, whereas with Wind Waker, they were like, well, it worked before when we had the Hero of Courage. Yeah, let's go find him. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, in this timeline, it didn't work, so what's the point in finding a hero because it didn't work last time? That's a very good point, actually, and also very sad. Because, yeah, it didn't work, so why would we bother? God, that is really depressing. What a depressing way to end the Downfall timeline. I mean, it makes sense, though. It's just, yeah, it's rough. The more you think about these games, where, you know, parts of it being intentional or not by Nintendo, they are very heavy games. Um, you know, there are different aspects that are very deep and very heavy, and it's a lot. So, yeah, I think I like the fact that we've got these different timelines. In all honesty, I do like them because it organises it in a way that makes sense logically. Um, but then you get to the the most recent Zelda games, so you know modern Zelda games, I'd say, where they no longer fit in a timeline. So Nintendo recently changed their timeline to add a new timeline that was completely separate to anything that we've had so far. The nature of young teens or children bearing so much weight and responsibility is always going to hit hard, exactly, and it's, you know, we see these people grow and develop, even though, you know, said main character is purposely not very emotive and deep and has a lot of story because you're supposed to reflect yourself onto the character. But it hits hard because it's a trope a lot of people use, but this series explores it in a very beautiful way, and which very nicely leads into Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the two games that have their own timeline because they're not connected at all to the rest of the Zelda games, even though they do make clear references to the other Zelda games. It's completely separate. So as I say, people would then argue, what's the point of the timeline? Because, you know, some games don't fit in, so why don't we just leave it and just forget about the timeline? But, you know, whatever. So Tears of the Kingdom, no, Breath of the Wild rather. It's because we've got Tears of the Kingdom on at the moment. Breath of the Wild, whatever you think about Breath of the Wild, say it's a convergence. That makes sense. I think that creates a lot of interesting theories. I like that. But yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot to think about when it's like, well, where does it go? What happens? Because yeah, all the timelines inevitably end up at this point. I like that. It would make sense. It would make it a bit. Yeah, that is a lot to think about because how do they know about what happened in this timeline and this timeline? Yeah, and there's Breath of the Wild has a lot of connections. I'll go through the story in a minute, but in the first memory of Breath of the Wild, Zelda says, whether Skyward Sword, Adrift in Time, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, or steeped in the glowing embers of Twilight Princess. So it's clear that there is an awareness, whether Zelda knows it or not at that point. But you know, there's those connections, whether that's fan service or there is a genuine understanding of what happened during Twilight Princess, we don't know. And it's yeah, there's a lot of connections and it's hard to figure out where they are. Exactly, and then you get into like Hyrule Warriors, because technically, according to Nintendo, they're not canon. They have no relation at all to the main series, so they shouldn't be impacting what we think about where they fall. But equally, they're great games. And they would actually serve as a good overarching sort of link between them. That could be a part of where that converged timeline comes from, because the original Hyrule Warriors talks about, again, Ocarina, Skyward Sword, and Twilight Princess, but also goes into Wind Waker. You know, it brings a lot of those games together, and it's very interesting, in all honesty. So where does Sonia and Raru's timeline fall? They say they're the first rules of Hyrule, so is it sometime after Skyward Sword and before the other games? Yes, so this is one I'm going to talk about, because exactly, where did the Zonai come from? They're supposed to be descended from the sky, but then Link and Zelda came from the sky, So is it before them, or is it after them, or it's very confusing, and I want to get into this. So let me, yeah, the sky can be pretty big. But they also refer to themselves as the king of, I believe, the rulers of Hyrule. I believe, but I might be wrong. Yeah, they didn't. They did some other stuff. They didn't hear about Skyward Sword. Demise, don't know him. But yeah, let's jump right into Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So let's start with Breath of the Wild. Because, yeah, let's put it to one side. Because the basis of Breath of the Wild is there is a battle 10,000 years ago between a hero, a princess, and an incarnation of calamity, of evil. And they won. Yay, great, wonderful. Where that falls in the timeline, who knows? Because we don't have any idea of time and how it scales in Zelda games. 10,000 years ago, that could have been Skyward Sword. 10,000 years ago, that could have been Ocarina of Time. Like, we don't know. And now we get that understanding that the battle 10,000 years ago was that was around the founding of Hyrule. But again, is that before Skyward Sword? Is it after? It's very confusing. Because there's no reference to that in any other Zelda game, which makes sense because Skyward Sword was before it. But yeah, it's tricky. I don't know where this battle 10,000 years ago was, apart from Tears of the Kingdom. But where it falls in the timeline, I haven't got a clue. But based on this battle 10,000 years ago, there was a prophecy that, evil, as usual, will rise again. And essentially, this curse is going to keep rolling. This cycle of heroes and princesses and evil, it's going to keep rolling. And it's going to go again. Which is why, 100 years before Breath of the Wild, they become aware that this is the time. This calamity is rising again. Don't show me Black Tree Plains when I'm talking about this. And the key to opposing that calamity is beneath the ground, which is why they begin doing... I know, right? This is why they start doing the excavations. And they start trying to repeat history. They start trying to repeat what they did 10,000 years ago. And that is by finding the divine beasts, the giant mechanical behemoths, and the captains to run them, to ride them. And they have a hero and they have a princess. So they're trying to recreate history and sort of clutching at those straws that, well, if we follow what history tells us, we can beat this and we can do this again. It's worth noting that the hero from 10,000 years ago looks like a Zonai. Yes. So perhaps an early descendant of Sonia and Raru. Yes. Because again, there is that. Yeah, there's a whole thing about Sonia and Raru's children, and did they have them? Did they not have them? How did the Zonai work? And yeah, it's a whole thing. Let me get to that. So with Breath of the Wild, they are desperate to repeat history because that is the only thing that they know what to do. But the only problem is their princess is powerless. And I know, right? Jumping ahead. Let's come back. Their princess is powerless for whatever reason. She can't awaken her power like her ancestors had. And that creates its own trauma for Zelda. I said before about how Ocarina of Time Link has his own traumas. Zelda in that time does as well, but the Zelda in Breath of the Wild has, and Link as well, but Zelda goes through so much. For a bunch of pixels, she goes through a lot. I'm literally typing and deleting so much, like, wait until we get there. Let me talk about this game. And that comes with its own trauma and guilt and tension between all these characters, because they have this story of, this is how they defeated the evil before. If we don't follow it down to the letter, we're not going to beat this. We don't know what is coming. We just know it's evil. We have no idea how to beat it. We just know that if we follow these rules, which are just pure tradition, it's just a story. if we follow this story down to the letter, we'll beat it. But things are going wrong. You know, there's tensions, you know, there's tensions between Zelda and the king. Zelda's powerless. The champions are still kind of trying to get to know each other, and, you know, some of them are friends, some of them are not, and it's tense, and it's not going right. So then by the time the calamity arrives, they're completely unprepared, and they can only go with what they've got. So, you know, Zelda's still powerless, but they've got to go to the castle, because that's where the calamity has arisen from, right beneath their feet, and they've just got to try. That's all they can do. So the champions go to their divine beasts. That's their job. Their job is to keep the calamity at bay, which at the moment is just this sort of ethereal creature. It's not corporeal, you know, it's not a body, it's just a thing. And all they can do is they can try. And they have to watch and experience that attempt break apart and collapse, and essentially witness the downfall of Hyrule. You know, all of their defenses, you know, physical defenses like the Citadel at Akala, the Guardians that are made to protect the hero, fall into Ganon's hands. And from that, the divine beasts then fall into Ganon's hands. Their plan is falling apart, and they're watching it happen. And it is awful. Gotta go. Thanks for streaming. I love listening to theories and laws about this game. Thank you so much, Elwyn Fangirl. I cannot wait to see your drawing in Clocktown. I cannot wait to see it. I already so excited. Thank you so much for hanging out. It is so lovely to have you here. Have a lovely rest of your Linktober Creator Con, and I shall see you soon. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I will see you soon. Yes, so their plan is falling apart, and it is not what the story... This isn't what is supposed to happen. So, you know, their friends are gone. Their friends, family, loved ones are dying. Hyrule is aflame, and, you know, their main points of defense, like the Citadel, the fortresses, they are falling. And there is just Link and Zelda on their own to watch this happen. But we're all human, and thank God we're not on Blatchley Plain anymore, is what I'm saying, because it is at that point that in Blatchley Plain, outside Fort Ateno, we know what happens. The Guardians are there. Link can only do so much, only human, and it is at the point, it's theorized, but that is the place and the time that Zelda awakens her power. Now, why does this happen at this point? Is it the goddesses have only just deemed her worthy? Is it based on the song we have in the game? Is it that she finally realizes that she loves him, and the idea of watching him die is too much, and she has to find a way to protect him? Absolute babies, mind you. We don't know specifically. I go down the love theory because it's very bittersweet, and it makes sense given they're sort of enemies to lover kind of thing. Love that. But anyway, it's too late. If it weren't for the Shrine of Resurrection, it would be too late. So she has to watch the person she either very much cares about or loves, whichever theory you wish to go down. She still has to watch someone die after potentially witnessing, but definitely being aware of the other deaths of all of her loved ones. I just realised the light dragon's there. Cute. You know, she's gone through a lot. She has to gather the tattered sort of strength that she's got to follow the plan of restoring the Master Sword and taking on Ganon alone. This is not how the story went 10,000 years ago, but she has to do it. And she does it for 100 years, giving Link the time to recover, awaken, and without any memories, in this world he doesn't know, and save it, which again comes with its own trauma, its own responsibilities, its own duty. And by working together, they do fulfill the prophecy by destroying Calamity Ganon. And I want to mention just briefly, because it's just a very nice tidbit, the age or the time after Zelda first starts fighting Ganon with her goddess powers. It's called the Age of Burning Fields, because it is the point where Hyrule has been leveled, pretty much. It is in ruin, the fields are burning, and they, everyone picks themselves up and they make amends, they look after themselves, they rebuild. It's not quite to Hyrule's former glory, but it is the Age of Burning Fields, and they nestle into their own communities. The Hylians took themselves away, the Zoras took themselves away, and by the time both Link and Zelda come back, it is not the kingdom that they know. It is very different, and that is where I personally find the beauty in this game, is this world is not the same as what it was before. And there's a grief in that, but there's also a beauty in that as well. And I just love Breath of the Wild. Again, whatever people say about it, whether they like it, they hate it, absolutely your opinion, whatever. I personally love it. It is beautiful, and I just love how deep it goes with its environmental storytelling and the memories and everything. I just wanted to give Breath of the Wild the time it needs. I know a lot of people say it's overrated and blah blah blah. I love it, so that is my opinion, so shush. So that's Breath of the Wild. It is beautiful and I love it. Now we get on to Tears of the Kingdom, which I know you all want to get to. So this takes place sometime after Breath of the Wild. Again, the whole point of Zelda games is we don't know really the time frame. Apart from, Link was asleep for 100 years. We know that. The battle originally was 10,000 years ago. We know that. But apart from that, there's no sort of temporal figuring out. But anyway, it's not supposed to be that way, because we can theorize and stuff then. But yeah, so sometime after Breath of the Wild, some people say years. I'm assuming it's going to be a couple of years, because they rebuild and new places are made, Sheikah technology is refined and destroyed, and all that sort of stuff. Yes, 6 or 7 years based on Matterson. That is very true, actually. Yes, one of the characters who is a Babu at the time is pretty much teenager by the time she leaves. That is true, actually. Matterson is old enough that she can't be around boys, which I love. But yeah, actually, at 6 or 7 years. Oh no, she's not born? No, you're absolutely right. I'm thinking of Dahlia, which is one of the little kids running around in Gerudo Town. You're right, she's not born. But yeah, so that's a good sort of time frame. 6-7 years. It gives Hyrule time to get back on its feet. Oh, that was it. Yes, of course, they just got married. Duh. That makes sense. But yeah, so 6-7 years, actually, that's a good time frame. There are some little kids who look about tweenish in Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, that is true, actually, yeah. So, again, there is a sense that Hyrule is sort of settled. It's not perfect, but it's settled. Yes, and Riju is now like a young adult. So yeah, Hyrule's sort of settled. It's, again, not what it was, but it's not. It doesn't want to be that. The people don't want to be what Hyrule was before. They've found a new way of life and they've settled to it, which is absolutely fair. Zelda has resumed her role as princess, not in a sort of leadership way, but more just she will help everyone just as she's done before. She just has a title, but it doesn't necessarily, doesn't mean anything, but it's different now. She's not sitting on a throne with a crown on her head. She's getting her hands dirty and getting stuff done. And Link, like the golden retriever boy he is, has not left her side. So as a part of exploration, investigating, all that sort of stuff, they end up below Hyrule Castle, because that is where the concept of gloom has appeared, which is this sort of particly stuff in the air that's not very concentrated whilst it's in the air, but on the ground it's like tar. People are getting sick from it. People are, well, probably getting depressed from it, but you know, people are getting ill. It's not necessarily killing people, I don't think. There's a concern, but it's does this mean evil's back, or is it just this is a weird quirky thing about Hyrule we've got to face? Let's figure it out. So they go behind or beneath Hyrule Castle. No. Thank you, Alice. Audio learning. Very true. So they go beneath Hyrule Castle. You mentioned them? I did. It was my fault. And yeah, I am listening. And they find dehydrated Ganon. It's the only way I can describe him because he's completely dehydrated. A whole load of stuff happens. Zelda falls in a chasm. Link loses his arm. And wakes up in the sky, which is cool. And this is how we get into the depths of Tears of the Kingdom, and what I would say is, in part, it's very confusing lore. And what I mean by that is you can't really, because you can't fit it into the rest of the timeline, it gets a bit confusing. So the lore of Tears of the Kingdom is you have beings from the sky called the Zonai, which are incredibly advanced, and they come down to the surface and essentially begin to become a part of daily life. You have Rauru, a Zonai, who marries Sonia, a human/Hylian, and with their union, you know, creates this sort of connection between these two tribes, essentially, and they start living amongst each other, helping people. And they have these stones called secret stones, which are little, I think, there's a name for them. They're like the amber relics in Skyward Sword. Yeah, like, it's really confusing, like, the whole Magatama, thank you. Is that from Phoenix Wright by any chance? Yeah, like, it's very confusing to work out. Ganondorf, Calamity Ganon, I know you. Yeah, it all gets a bit confusing because there's lots of iterations of different types of evil, but it's hard to say what. It gets confusing. And I not say I don't love it, because I do, but it gets very confusing. So, yeah, but they have these powers called secret stones that amplifies your own power. So you already have this sort of power, like the power to wield lightning or the power to heal, and these secret stones make them stronger. At this time, it's a valid criticism, but I think people are overly harsh. Yeah, I agree. I think people are very harsh with it. I think because Breath of the Wild to me was so structured, I think to go with something that is a bit more vague then creates that criticism, but it doesn't make it a bad story. It just makes it more interesting, because then you get to figure out, well, how are they connected, and how does this bit work, and how does that bit work, and yeah, I love it. I do think there are issues with the story and how it fits in, but that might just mean we haven't got the right understanding yet, but whatever, we'll figure it out. But yeah, so you've got the meeting of the Rauru and Sonia, so the Zonai and the Hylians, and they're connected. And, of course, as per usual, a Gerudo called Ganondorf wants to create problems and take the secret stones and take over Hyrule, do all his stuff. Until a twinky little princess called Zelda shows up from the future, because she touched the secret stone and went back into the past when she fell down the chasm. And she's there to help out and have a great time. So what ensues is this same typical Zelda story sense of, we need to stop Ganondorf, but we're gonna do it strategically. We're not gonna let him know that he knows that we're on to him, and all this sort of stuff. Ganondorf doesn't care. He decides, I'm going to take this from 0 to 100. I'm going to kill Sonia, take her secret stone, become all-powerful, and wreak havoc on the world. And yes, I did find the final boss in one stream, and that terrified me because I was like, I am not ready for this. Oh, I have not forgotten. It was a brilliant time. And so, a typical Zelda game, we fight Ganondorf, but we're not going to defeat him. And Zelda knows this because she saw him in the future. She knows they're not going to defeat him. They can only seal him away. Similar to Hylia at the very, very, very beginning with Skyward Sword, she could only seal him away. So Rauru makes that sacrifice of, I am going to make sure I will hold Ganon back for as long as possible until you in the future and Link in the future can use the Master Sword to stop him, or, you know, whatever means you have. So this takes place a long time ago. How it relates to the battle 10,000 years ago, I'm not sure. In all honesty, it might just be I don't remember, or we just don't know in general. But we've got this battle 10,000 years ago. We've got this battle between Rauru and Ganondorf, and then the events of Tears of the Kingdom. That's how I assume it works. But would it be Rauru first, then? I don't know. It gets a bit confusing. It gets a bit vague. But all you need to know is that happened 10,000 years ago. And the only way to beat Ganon, as is typical in any Zelda game, is to get the Master Sword. But that was destroyed during their first encounter with dehydrated Ganon. So it needs to be restored. And the only way to do that is to infuse it with light, and which is pretty much how it happened in Breath of the Wild. It was infused with light and it recovered, but it wasn't nearly as damaged back then. This sword goes for a lot. So Zelda makes the sacrifice of, very much akin to Skyward Sword Zelda, of ensuring that the sword is imbued with light for as long as it needs to be, which in this case will be thousands of years. But she's a human, she can't do that. So, spoilers. She swallows the secret stone that took her to the past, which makes her into an immortal dragon, the light dragon, which was floating around before on the screen. And in order to do that, she makes the ultimate sacrifice of her life and her consciousness and her memories and everything that makes her her, to ensure that she has fulfilled her duty to Link and to Hyrule, as every princess would. And that is, again, insane. And it made me cry. Because you think of what she goes through in Breath of the Wild, and then to go to Tears of the Kingdom, where arguably she's potentially even more powerless than she was before, because she couldn't stop what was going to happen to Rauru or to Sonia or to Ganon. And she knows what she has to do, and she does it with very little hesitation. She has very little regard for her own life, because she knows she holds everyone else above her. Exactly. If I think about Zelda waiting for 10,000 years and Rauru just holding on for 10,000 years, I will go insane. And there are people who have theorized and said, well, could little baby Zelda in Breath of the Wild, could she have seen the light dragon with her mother? You know, could they have been aware of the light dragon all this time? Or I don't know. There's a lot of things to think about, and the more you think about it, the sadder it becomes. But again, incredible. And then to the point where, from Link's perspective, his job is to protect her. And she's made this sacrifice not only for him, but for Hyrule. She has done everything she possibly can. And he can't go to that level. She's one-upped him. But now he knows that he can't protect her from that. He can't really bring her back from that. Which I think comes with its own trauma, because what happens after Ganondorf is defeated? If he's defeated, what happens then? There's no princess. You could argue then that it's kind of like a Wind Waker situation where there's no hero. What happens? And yeah, these two games explore loss and grief in a very heartwarming way. And traumatic way as well. But of course, we need to have a happy ending. So after this sacrifice, back in the present, so back in the times of Tears of the Kingdom, we collect the sages, we fight Ganon, we defeat Ganon, and in the heavens above, don't quite know what happens, Sonia and Rauru help Link to restore Zelda to her human form and create one of possibly my favourite endings to any Zelda game, because the music is just... and then from that point, that's the end of that particular timeline. And again, I will say it is messy, in the sense of there's a lot going on. The lore, for even just across these two games, are very dense, and there's a lot to pick apart and a lot of confusion, personally. Again, it doesn't detract from the story itself in my eyes. I think they're both brilliant games. Breath of the Wild holds up to the story a bit more, but Tears of the Kingdom has more... It goes into more detail and brings in more characters and things, so it's going to get more complicated. So it gets confusing, and this part of the timeline is very vague, because it's a lot of environmental storytelling, so it's difficult to pick up on everything. But again, very brilliant. It seems like they give up their lingering life forces with her, which, to be honest, that does make a lot of sense, because their spirits can be at peace. And I would get that, because that is their last wish, to ensure that... I mean, Zelda did everything for them. They honestly, they're the parents who stepped up. Rowan needs to take a few lessons. And they just... I just love their characters. I love them so much. They know what Zelda's done for them, and what ultimately she did do for them, to ensure that their kingdom was saved and protected. So that was, if anything, the least they could do was to ensure she had a happy future, and I think that's very nice. I still need to play Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is wonderful. I like when we played Skyward Sword and Echoes of Wisdom, and when we first played those games together on stream, it was similar to Tears of the Kingdom, where I just stood on that ledge and saw the expanse of the sky that I hadn't even touched it yet, hadn't even explored it yet, and just skydiving for the first time off that area with the music and the wind and the light dragon and the anticipation of what was to come. For me, it's one of my favourite openings to a Zelda game as well, because it's just... It's incredible. It sets you up for, this is going to be an adventure, and I love that. In a way, I think they couldn't move on fully, because Zelda picked up Raru's secret stone and has it inside her once she eats it, and Ganon has Sonia's secret stone as well. Like, maybe their souls clung to the stone since they didn't pass the stones on to someone. They were stolen or picked up by others. That is beautiful. I think I really, really like that. I would not be surprised if that was the case, because it's very much again, another theme of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is spirits that can't rest. The spirits of the champions can't rest until you save them. Sonia and Rauru can't rest until you know, you fulfill their wishes, and also their secret stones are ultimately destroyed. It's unfinished business, exactly. And even for the characters that are living, they have unfinished business as well. And that is what I like about these two games in particular. They really go into depth about that. And yes, it is, you know, a fun game where you get to create things and destroy things, you know, all that sort of stuff with the gameplay. But from a story point of view and from a history point of view for the games, it's definitely, it was kind of like a sandbox for them. Like, you see a lot of elements in Breath of the Wild and things that they tried in Skyward Sword, and some would argue didn't get right, but, you know, they tried things in Skyward Sword and then did it more in Breath of the Wild. And you can see it's sort of like all these Zelda games led up to this point, which is really nice, which makes it more interesting for where they're going to take it next. But yeah, the whole thing of unfinished business is, I mean, it kind of fits all of them, doesn't it? You know, it fits all of the Zelda games in their own way, but it's that never-ending cycle of, this cycle is never going to end because of this curse. And that's terrifying, but also liberating, because then you've got the power to ensure that the future is safe. Should that be Link and Zelda's responsibility and Ganon's choice? Not really, but it's where they are. It's, yeah. I could do 100,000 word thesis on most of this. Or just one part, who knows. But I think that would safely and traumatizingly bring us to the end of our Zelda lore. So we can still have a chat and, you know, do some other things, but that is, when I say those 2 or 3 points on there has led to 3 hours of stream, that is insane. And I would like to toot my own horn by saying I didn't really prepare for that. That's all I prepared.